Hello, and welcome to Jen's Thoughtful Tuesday Turnaround. My name is Jen Trum, and I am a human resources leader for over 20 years and also a certified life coach. And what that means is I help people be able to see themselves in a lot of ways. Sometimes it's so hard to sometimes see ourselves. And so a coach really helps kind of clear some of the fog so we can see the truth of who we are and who we can be, the potential of who we can be. Today, we're going to talk about an episode that Catherine and I just dropped yesterday. And the episode was number 21 of Thrive and Shine HR. And it was all about micromanaging. And what was so fascinating about that episode is we came into it all ready to talk about the different micromanagers that we've worked with, the different micromanaging behaviors that perhaps we may have exhibited in our past. And where we ended up was really this thoughtful conversation around the micromanaging that we do within our own heads. And that's what I want to talk about today, because we really kind of barely touched on it yesterday. Let me get a sip here. And now I want to be able to explore it even further, because what in the world does it mean to micromanage in my head? And the way that I most best look at it is like when you compare micromanaging is what we see externally. We see it from leaders, mostly we see it in the home sometimes, and it's really about the control that one person needs in order to have an impact in the outcome. So it's the inability to be able to let go of that control and allow the outcome to come as it will. And that resistance of letting go is really where the micromanaging comes in, the holding on really tight, the holding on to really tight of what we think the process should be in order to get to the outcome that we most want. And in leadership roles, it's so difficult to work with people who are trying to micromanage things, as we all know. And so when it comes to then how we can learn how to better relate with those individuals, I think Catherine and I nailed it in so many ways yesterday. But again, it just boom, opened up both of our minds around, wait a second, when we really pay attention to how we manage ourselves and how we manage the overthinking that many of us do. We're constantly in these states of worrying and having anxiety and kind of thinking of, this and that. And the way that I finally described it, and I think I articulated it decently, but I'm going to try again, is like, ultimately, if we're really paying attention to how our minds work, they're going pretty much constantly, right? Like if we're not really intentional with slowing ourselves down, like, I talk about, meditation, this, that, but if we're not really intentional about actually kind of slowing down the chaos that is within our minds, we're trying to, what I kind of explained yesterday, it's like we're trying to micromanage the outcomes that we want to see in our lives. And so we're constantly in worry or doubt or anticipation or anxiety or whatever it is that we're spinning about. But it has so much to do with wanting to control the outcome of our future. And that is, like, I think for me, kind of a game changer when I really pay attention and recognize, well, wait a second, my overthinking, my inability to kind of come into the present moment as much as I possibly can, my struggle with, thinking all the time is really, if you put it into perspective, it's we're micromanaging ourselves. We are micromanaging the hell out of ourselves. And so I think when we can recognize that for what it is and realize that the thinking and the overthinking and the ruminating and the all the things that we find ourselves doing over and over again, when we can start to kind of dial into that and recognize that we're in that same sort of spot as what we talked about yesterday. And the why behind it, you can go back to that episode, but I'll hit on it here just for a little moment. The why behind it is fear. right? It's like the doubts and the self-doubts that we have that come up that really keep us from really being true about what is true for us. And so sometimes when it comes to control, or when it comes to wanting to have control over outcomes, we bottle up so much of what the truth is about it. Maybe we're afraid of other people might see that we don't actually know. We don't have all the answers. And so because we don't have all the answers, we need to be a part of every single step of the process, because we don't want to be seen. We don't want to be exposed for the reality of what could possibly be there. So bringing that out and saying, hey guys, or hey, you, whatever that conflict may come up for us, but saying, hey, I just want you to know, I haven't done this before. I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be. And I want you to know that I'm really nervous about that. I'm afraid I may fail. I'm afraid I might be seen as a failure. I'm afraid that others might not want to work with me anymore because they're going to see my ideas bad or terrible. So it's really about becoming clear about what that truth is. And it is not easy to do. But that, I think, is the key, not only for releasing the micromanaging behaviors that we see in our workplace, but also for releasing whatever we are micromanaging and holding on to within ourselves. So what I want to do today is I want to share with you 5 ways that I think every single one of us today and every day, 5 ways that we can become more aware of our own overthinking and really start to become more aware of how our overthinking is holding us back and keeping us from really being able to have those conversations that are going to be tough, that are going to be difficult, but being able to kind of find a way to become very true to yourself around what you feel and what you need, right? So these are not easy things. And so these are 5 ways that you can start kind of playing with it in your own life and then finding your own way on what works best. Because I can tell you one thing, 100% sure, you are way further along today than you were a year ago or 2 years ago. So don't feel as though anything that I talk about, Catherine talks about, or anybody else out there that you listen to or watch, don't take it to mean that you are a lost cause, that there's no hope and I might as well just give up because clearly I am just not getting any of this right. And I say nay, right? I say today can be the day where you say, I'm going to try this one thing on Jen's list of 5. And that's a great thing. That's a progress. That's a step. That's all we need every single day is just a step. And if yesterday was a backwards, fuck it. Just let that go and let's move forward. So, all right, let me do my 5 and then we are out of here. So number 1 is practicing meditation or mindfulness in some way. And I talked about this recently about how my boss and I had this really great conversation about how we have meditations all the time. We might be driving, we might be walking, we might be hiking, we might be in the shower, but we're just really being present and breathing and trying to release whatever it is and also allow whatever is, like yesterday I was having just I was not in a good mindset. I was just really cranky and I could feel it all day long. And it wasn't until the end of the day I finally pushed myself. I took a bath and I could finally feel it release because I started kind of breathing through it. And so some days are not like all. I have some days where I get up and I got to go. I do not have time for a 15-30 or whatever type of meditation. So we have to then re-regulate as best as we can and as quickly as we can, especially when we recognize that we're maybe out of balance a little bit. And that's a tough thing to do, but I think that that's the inner work, is listening to ourselves and then really taking action based on what our truth is. Number 2 is journaling. Journaling is definitely one that's difficult for me. I don't know why. I don't know why it's so damn hard for me, but I am feeling like I'm getting a little bit better and better. And I'm saying, okay, even if it's one sentence, I don't give Just get down there and write something about what's true for you right now. And I always end up finding more than just a single sentence. It's like the eating one chip thing, right? Like eat one chip, just eat one chip. And you're like, ah. It's not necessarily that for me, especially most days, but occasionally it starts flowing in just a beautiful way. So you got to find what works for you. And, if journaling's not for you, then, pass on that. But I think for a lot of people, writing things down, there's something about it that I think helps free us, and saying it out loud too. A lot of times if I'm by myself, and I'll even just, if I am, around people, I'll just say it in my head, but saying it out loud. So I'll write it in a journal and then I'll say it back to me. And yeah, there's something about that that some stuff sometimes for me. So give it a shot. Number 3, setting boundaries around your thinking time. Like I remember hearing something about Albert Einstein one time that said he would like intentionally set aside time where he would, and it's to this day and age, it's so interesting with all the social media and everything, but he would shut everything off and just literally go blank in his mind. He would force himself to like not not think and do anything and just be. And I think there's something so powerful about that. It gets back to, the meditation and mindfulness, but it also comes into intention around like when there's a lot, especially, and this is like so relatable to anyone who struggles with taking good care of themselves when they are at their worst, right? When you're really at your worst, do you step it up? Or do you find that that's when you're actually when you start slacking and start not taking care of yourself as much? And not paying attention to that in my life has been so huge, because recognizing that, setting intentional time to not think and to just let myself be is an act of so much love for myself. And when I'm in a place where I'm not feeling good about myself, boy, is it easy for me to like stop doing that. Stop actually taking the intentional time to free myself of whatever baggage is holding me down. So, yeah. So paying attention to the intentional time where we take breaks from just all the chaos is a big, big thing for me, and something I definitely recommend for everybody. Engaging in physical activity. So I'm definitely one who tries to do physical activity every day. And sometimes it's just stretching. Like literally sometimes I just put on Peloton, and there's stretching classes that I love. I will talk about Peloton, the strength classes and the cardio classes and the yoga and the stretching all day because it's so good. But yeah, so that I every day find a way to move the body, especially if you're like myself and you have a sedentary sitting job. We have got to be paying attention to our physical bodies and how that sitting all day is impacting our bodies, and slowly kind of if we deteriorate as human beings when we're not moving. So keeping the body moving a little bit every day, whatever that looks like for you, and really challenging yourself, recognizing that there's a huge part of our brain. This is our monkey brain. This is the part of our brain that's going to want to keep us comfortable, keep things easy, right? So that huge part of your brain doesn't want to work out. It doesn't want to stretch. It doesn't want to do anything, right? It just wants to lay and veg. So you have to be the one. You have to be the one to be intentional, and you have to be the one to set those challenging goals to say, nay, I am going to force myself, and I do know it's for the right reasons, because my brain just naturally is going to want to tell me, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. So you have to push that out of the way and go for it anyway. All right, last one is, gosh, it's the biggest for me by far, and it's the one that's changed my life forever, and that's practicing gratitude. And it's really, really tough to practice gratitude when we're not feeling good about ourselves. It's really, really tough to see light in the world when there's darkness going on. And my encouragement to you and my encouragement to myself every single day is to force find the things that I can be grateful for, especially on the dark days and the hard days. And that's a huge ask. It's a huge ask for many of us, and it's a huge ask for myself. And I can be honest and I can be open about that I struggled with that for a long time around really being able to feel gratitude and feel thankful for anything when I saw my life in a dark place. But what I'm here to tell you, and I know that it's like a broken record, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but what I'm here to tell you is when you force yourself and when you say, hey, my brain, my brain it really doesn't want to try to find good and light when we're in an icky kind of low place. And the reason why is because of shame and because of, I'm going to be totally honest, self-sabotage. So the reason why we hold ourselves in such a dark place and struggle with seeing light and getting out and being thankful is because there's a part of us that's holding us there. And if we're not aware of that, that is where it gets stuck for many, many, many of us. And it's not until we can say, hey, you know what? I know that that's natural. That's a normal thing to do, to hide myself from light when I don't see that within myself. And the only way I'm going to break free of that is to actually start to force myself to see the light around me and within me. And that's work. That takes a lot of work, and it might be quite a big climb, but you can't make movement until you have effort. So I encourage you to really start with the gratitude, because that way you're not forcing it to be about you, right? You can take your time with it and you can actually like build it up over time. But you can also recognize that by starting to put more gratitude out into the world and starting to look for it more, like being able to see the sun is shining. It's shining. The sun is shining today. It's going to be 91 today. This is my sweet spot. I don't know about you, but it's my sweet spot. There's no fires here yet in Southern Oregon. There's so much to be grateful for about living in such a beautiful part of Oregon. I could go on and on and on, right? These things have nothing to do about how I might deeply feel about myself right now. And that can be something that we can work towards in time. And so I think that, is one of the biggest of all the 5 steps that we can do, especially if we're gut checking ourselves and recognizing that we're in a space where we're struggling with seeing and feeling the light. So that's then where it's like, oh, I think I do it for myself all the time. I am still a baby in this. I see myself as a toddler. I'm only a couple years in when it comes to like being so much more intentional around where my light is and how I can challenge myself, because I've now learned that through the courage of breaking through the walls I've built around myself, through the courage of breaking those, I'm now able to kind of see the what's on the other side. And I'm able to recognize so much more around what I have the potential of being able to handle. What I have the potential of being able to lean into, the more difficult conversations with others and boundary setting and, all of those things that I think when we find that we struggle so much with how we feel about ourselves, it makes it so much more difficult to be able to communicate with others effectively. And so I think, building kind of these tools is really, I think, where I'm kind of getting to with this. And I think we kind of see where this is going is like building up our level to become less of a personal micromanager is going to be a superpower around how you're going to be able to show up as your best self, both for yourself and for everybody else around you. So these 5 things, I'll say them one more time before we jump off. The 5 things around practicing mindfulness and meditation, whatever that looks like for you, you do you. Journaling, writing it down, and then speaking it back. Power in that. Power. 3, setting boundaries of your thinking time. What do those boundaries need to look like in order to give you some space? And that space is something that so much can come from that, and healing and growth and all of that when we give this space to allow things to just be. 4, engage in physical activity. Move your body, whatever that looks like for you, but move it, especially if you're someone who is sedentary. And 5, cultivate gratitude. Cultivate it, friends. Cultivate it. If it's something that has not been a huge part of your life, think about where you can start challenging yourself, because this is one of those things, just like physical activity, that if you don't push you, nobody else will. Nobody else will. And being able to see the beauty, to see the light, to see the gifts in the world around us is the key. It will unlock so much. And again, it's still happening for me. It's the daily thing, because it's not something that I did throughout the first 48 years of my life. So building this into my life, and then having the faith to let go of the rest, right? Of everything else that's outside of my control is a daily challenge. Even coming on here, recording this, it gets easier-ish, but there's still nerves you have to break through of it. Am I good enough? Am I going to let people down? Am I going, all of those questions come up still, because I'm human, and I'm still working on all the overthinking that's created me to then think that this is necessary to have all of this micromanaging talk going on around thinking I have control over the outcome. And I don't. I have control of how I'm presenting myself and the best that I can do in the moment, and just be present as best I can. And that's, I think, what I tried to do today. So with that, we're going to wrap up the Thoughtful Tuesday turnaround on micromanaging versus overthinking. I hope it gave you a little bit to think about. I hope that it helps you in terms of maybe turning around how you might be looking at, different ways where you're approaching life. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful day.